Hello everyone and welcome back to the Cyclocross Social podcast. Today we're going to be discussing the third round of the Cyclocross World Cup, which took place in Terralba in Sardinia, or on Sardinia I should say, because of course it's an island, and with me to discuss that is Issam.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Hopefully you found some time to look at the racing between the F1 action. Certainly the men's race here on Sardinia was more entertaining than the F1 race, if you were to ask me. I had the cyclocross on the big screen, and it was the first time we raced here. Last year, of course, it was in Cabras where the storm cancelled the race. New venue now on the island. I was quite curious about the course. I know you were dying to find a pre-ride video on Thursday when we recorded the preview. So what is your take on the course? For me, certainly a unique course, unique type of landscape, not something with these trees you see all too often at a cyclocross race. The standing water really made this unique. That meant that the course really deteriorated throughout the day, but that water, it was thrown in the air probably 1,000 times today, but it just kept falling back in place and went absolutely nowhere. Not the thick type of mud, but definitely this water section at the end of the course drained the legs. Flowy, not Belgian in that sense, so really it has its own character. A bit of sand, nothing too crazy. Chris Mannaerts, the organizer or course builder for Flanders Classics, called this the Africa of Europe, where the race took place. I don't really know what Africa has to do with it myself, but curious what your take is on the course, Issam.
If I focus on the course itself and the scenery, I think it was a good course, to be honest. I was a bit afraid that it would disappoint, I guess, but I felt like the course had a good flow. It was quite unique, it had little bits of the, some of the Spanish races that I've seen that are held in these parks and all that, and I think that it resembles a little bit with that. I think that the sand that we had in certain parts of the course was also quite interesting and had a purpose in a way as well. It was not race defining, I guess, but it was definitely a nice thing to have, unique thing. To see that it was somewhat spread a little bit there over the course, and that you had certain sections there, and the water was definitely I guess an issue for the riders a little bit, because it was just every lap you had to go through it, and it never really disappeared, and some of it turned, the ground kind of turned into some mud, but it was as you said, it was mud where you could get through quite easily. It was a little tricky, so there was definitely room for mistakes there, but I think that overall I cannot really criticize the course all too much. There were some things that could be better, but I think overall the course was all right and actually pleasant to look at. So I think if I have to look at that, I think that they did a good job, and I was pleased when I saw the course on TV, and also before when I saw the onboard. So it was pleasant.
For sure, and I think this course maybe lacks like a defying feature, or just this one place where you can really make the move. It didn't really have any of that, but that's not a reason to be overly critical on it. It had some similarities maybe to Pontevedra, where the European Championships were last year, definitely in terms of camera angles and the park vibe to it, maybe also a bit of a warmer climate playing into that. The only thing I think is a little bit of a shame is last year they built this entire course in Cabras. They constructed sand pits, they built artificial hills just for the purpose of the race, and now it's just out there and never really going to be used again for a race. The local club has done a few trainings there, I've noticed, but that's kind of it. So that seems like a waste of resources and a waste of land, but it is what it is, and hopefully here they can make some modifications and we can come here a number of times. There were not that many spectators. It was also not a horrendous turnout, but we'll see what this means for the future, and the World Cup certainly needs events like this. But we discussed that on Thursday already in the preview, or the midweek episode, however you want to call it. We spoke extensively about the World Cup and about the marketing. Maybe one thing is we were quite negative about the marketing of cross, but I am very thankful that cyclocross has not given us whatever that World Cup draw in Washington, D.C. was. 2.5 hours, just whatever, FIFA. Like, I bet the UCI headquarters, David Laparchente, is seeing some interesting takeaways from that and going to organize a big show for himself like
he
that,
was jealous.
maybe with a UCI Peace Prize or whatever in there. But
UCI Peace
let's
Prize.
maybe you can also invent a Peace Prize, or you can invent any prize to award at the end of the season, Issam. But I think we should not bore our listeners too much with that and actually dive into the action, because as said, it was a really entertaining race, especially the men's race, which is the first one we will cover. Early on in the race, we had Joris Nieuwenhuis. He's been a very consistent starter this season, very impressive. He was up there setting the pace at the front. There were some 15 leaders. It was very, very hard to break away. The Ridley Racing rider didn't seem too eager to make a big move, knowing it was a long race, but slowly but surely that leading group thinned out. At some point, 6 riders broke away, a couple of others were hanging in the back, but really the main protagonists, there were 4 of them. It was Joris Nieuwenhuis, Pim Ronhaar, Michael van Toerenhout and Laurens Zweek. Those were the 4 riders making the strongest impression. Nieuwenhuis and Van Toerenhout took turns setting the pace. Ronhaar made one move, but eventually Ronhaar would puncture in the final lap, and that would set him back after what was a very good race. Zweek, Nieuwenhuis and Van Toerenhout duked it out for the win, with Niels van der Putten making a half play at an overtake at some point, but he never really featured. It was between those 3 guys. There were position movements, there were overtakes, Zweek overtaking Nieuwenhuis late in the lap making a double dive bomb, overtaking both Zweek and Van Toerenhout to take the lead, but then Van Toerenhout took the lead again just after the second pit zone, and from there on he set the pace. Nieuwenhuis was glued on the wheel, but as they hit the pavement before the stairs, Van Toerenhout put in a massive acceleration, powered away 3-4 bike lengths. Nieuwenhuis looked behind, saw Zweek, knew it was time to defend second place, and he did so. Nieuwenhuis parked the bus on the stairs and the 2 remaining corners. Zweek seemed eager to make a pass and still try and challenge Van Toerenhout, but he couldn't do that, and from that final corner, going through that 180 with such low speed, it's super hard to overtake, so Nieuwenhuis sprinted to second ahead of Zweek. We've been discussing this dynamic the last few weeks, Issam, where some riders have been having a bit of a slump. They didn't really have the results that we saw them have earlier this year. Michael van Toerenhout was one of those riders, and this week, just after we recorded our preview podcast, I think it was on Friday, he gave an interview with a number of media outlets kind of reflecting on that period. He said after the European Championships he put in a big week of training, one that hampered his performances in Hamma and Merckxplas, because his goal for this season was to win the World Cup. Instead, he felt strong in Tabor, but then crashed, and that crash took a bigger toll on his body than he expected. The week after, his training was compromised, he didn't feel as recovered, he felt very stiff still in Flamanville last week, but that he had faith that this week of training would make him feel fresh and recuperated for the Christmas period. And what better way to back that up by taking the win, Issam? This is historically a phase in the season in which Michael van Toerenhout is really strong. I just think back to his win in Namur, for instance. That was, I believe, in a battle against Tom Pidcock. Last year, he won in Dublin in this time of the year. This is the part of the year last year where he decided the World Cup, also winning again in Namur. And this year, history kind of repeats itself. It's hard to bet against Michael van Toerenhout in this time of the year, even though I had my doubts following that bad streak of results the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I think we saw Van Toerenhout again that was on a level that we had seen from him before this season, and he showed that from the beginning of the race, and I was kind of just like looking at it from the perspective of, okay, we have seen this also play out, and is he going to be able to play a role when it really matters on the final lap? And he definitely played his role there. And I think it is. I'm struggling to really have now this, to see this result as something that means that we now will see Van Toerenhout in the next coming weeks at the front. I definitely think that there are some courses coming up that suits him super well. I think that Namur for sure is a race in which he will definitely try to have a very good result done there as well. And he is somewhat the climber type of rider, so that those are going to be races that suit him well. But yeah, I think today he was definitely strong, I wouldn't necessarily say that he gave me the strongest impression during the race. I think that Nieuwenhuis was definitely also very good, but Van Toerenhout was up there as well. And Sveek was, I think he looked to me like he was going to be the smartest. And I think eventually what somewhat costed him was that he, was trying to be in that second place because he thought, well, with the sprint I can definitely finish it off and go for victory. And then you get behind Nieuwenhuis due to circumstances, and when you're there, Nieuwenhuis, as you said, knew at that point when Van Toerenhout accelerated, okay, this is going to be for second, and he got that second place as well. So there is, you can absolutely not blame Nieuwenhuis for doing that. You have to get the maximum out of your day, and Nieuwenhuis did just that. And I think that Van Toerenhout definitely bouncing back from a somewhat difficult period. Tabor, the crash definitely could have played a role, but he was at that time already, not in the best of forms, or at least his results were not amazing after the European Championship, and European Championship itself was not good either. So yeah, it's good to see for sure that he was able to bounce back. And this was really a race, I felt like, where if you did not really have the greatest of periods, you actually could make something out of your day. The start list is a little bit thinner than it normally usually is, and that just gives you more opportunity to have a good result. Not much elevation. It was a tricky course, but you could follow somewhat, and if the differences are not that big, you can make something good out of your day. So yeah, I think that's for Van Toerenhout. Amazing result, great job. He was doing great all race, and you had signs that he was definitely one of the riders that would be contending for victory, and he pulled it off.
We should be a little bit careful about drawing a lot of conclusions based on this race. As you say, a lot of people weren't there. The course was atypical. But at the same time, I do feel this race says something about what's to come. Again, it's hard to interpret. How have people been training? Have they taken rest? Have they done a hard week of training? How are they building towards that Christmas period? The tree is up right over my shoulder here in the background. It's really getting closer to that time of the year. But because of the nature of the course, it was a very honest course. It came down a lot to power and who had the engine to do well, and that will be telling in the upcoming races. Here in the Netherlands and Belgium, it's been raining a lot the last couple of weeks. The upcoming weeks, it says more rain on the forecast. The courses will hopefully get really muddy. That will suit a different type of rider than perhaps the riders we've seen do well the last couple of weeks and months. So it could be curious. What I liked about Van Toerenhout today, other than that he made a very strong appearance, was that he raced very tactically. He took the lead at a number of points, and this was smart because on this course it was hard to overtake. There were not that many straightaways. Really the only place where you could move up maybe more than one spot was the straightaway before the little stairs. So the start-finish straight, the pace was relatively high. After that you hit that right-hander onto the gravel roads. I saw a number of times people trying to make moves there, but their tires slipped out. In the final lap, you could just see how hard they were going at it. Ryan Kamp, you could see in one of these shots that he slipped on the rear wheel simply just carrying so much speed through one of these corners. So that said, it's really hard to overtake. Then it's vital that you sit in the front positions of the race. And Van Toerenhout, Nieuwenhuis and Sveek all did that. They were never really away from those top 4 positions. Ronhaar for most of the race was the one up there. Look at the end of the race. Niels van der Putten makes a play, but he's just been chasing too much. He needed to put in too many efforts, too many gaps to close on those pavement sections, too many little risks that he needs to take to close that gap. Ryan Kamp, very strong race, and we'll discuss him in a bit, but also him, in the final lap, what is the reason that he cannot hang there? Well, first of all, the riders in front of him are probably just generally better riders, but also he has been chasing. He was back there, he was dropped, he needed to put in a pull with Agostinaccio. Van Toerenhout, Nieuwenhuis and Sveek not. They were at the front, they were cruising. And then you come into the kind of tactical play, and Nieuwenhuis is Issam, we know his way to win races. This is how he almost always does it. 20 minutes into the race, after maybe makes a move at the start, but after 20 until 40 minutes into the race, he just tightens the screws, and he keeps just tweaking and pushing, and at some point the wood he's putting the screw into will crack. But today, Van Toerenhout probably knew about this tactic. I mean, they've raced each other many times. And whenever he took the lead, it seemed to me that the pace was dropping. And then all the hard work of Nieuwhuis was undone. The two of them were gone, Van Toerenhout hits the front, and everybody comes back again. And then he also puts Nieuwhuis in a position where Nieuwhuis needs to fight for position. I mean, we saw Ryan Kamp fight for position with Pim Ronhaar, and Kamp did more to defend that position than Tsunoda did in Formula 1. I mean, Tsunoda made a half attempt to push Norris off the track today, but that was some serious elbow racing between those two, and it was vital on this course because it was so hard to overtake. So I think Van Toerenhout raced very smart and kind of neutralized the strategy that Nieuwenhuis normally uses to win these races.
Yeah, I think that's for sure. Van Toerenhout played it very smart today, because I as you said, he was definitely more collected. He was calm. He definitely had his tries in terms of trying to move up, but it was not a there were no crazy efforts, and that was something that we saw earlier in the season more often, that Van Toerenhout was just gonna lead the whole pack and just push. And I think that today he understood the assignment for this race, and I think that someone like Nieuwenhuis was definitely not comfortable by the way it was the race went, and he tried to take initiative to change that up, but it was just, I think it was also a bit the nature of the course that it was just you real quickly you look behind you and you made an effort, but there are still 2-3 behind you hanging in your wheel, and you're like, man, should I really push through? And the race is still long, and that kind of gives this invitation of riders coming back, and it kind of bunches the group up again, and then you have to do it all over. And as you said, that made the positioning also crucial as well. I think there was also Sveik and Ronhaar as well. Probably they were also, shoulder to shoulder trying to get through the corners, and that is also part of racing when you're just so close, and mistakes then also creep in a little bit. And yeah, thankfully that was not really a major thing in terms of the battle for victory, that the mistakes didn't really play a major role, and thankfully most of them were able to negotiate the course safely. And yeah, it's just one of those races. I don't think you can draw too many conclusions from that. I think that is definitely something that we have to take with us into the next coming weeks. But you can also see certain signs, and I think that for Van Toerenhout the signs are promising. Nieuwenhuis, we have seen him being up there for a couple of weeks already if it goes his way. And Sveik has also been up the up and was actually tipped as one of the favorites this weekend. So I think that he is also giving good signs for him to be given such a role. So I think that all three of them on the podium are on the up. Question will they be able to maintain that in the Christmas period when it's going to matter even more?
And there will be more competition then. We have next weekend Mathieu van der Poel coming into action, Tibor Del Grosso. And in Namur, honestly, if anywhere, if you're going to beat Van der Poel anywhere, it has to be there. I almost want to say it's like the one shot that they're going to get. I think it will be very difficult, but too much climbing for Nieuwenhuis. Definitely not the best course for Sveik, although he finished third at the European Championships there. But Van Toerenhout, nice. Mason, if ever, it's there. Van der Poel, third row start. First race, first participation in Namur since 2020. Historically, not a great course for Van der Poel. He's improved a ton in the more climby courses since, but still, out of all the races he's doing, that's probably the one where he is at his weakest, as much as you can call him weak. So if anywhere, Michael Van Toerenhout, load yourself up, give it everything next week. And I think it will be very, very difficult, but we'll keep that for the preview. And I will give the word back to you, Issam, because Sveik, third place, you say he's been on the up. There will definitely be some opportunities for him. You already mentioned Diegem, for instance. But what did you think today? Could he have done anything different to win? To me, it's hard to really say he put a foot wrong in this race. He was in the positioning game. Yeah, maybe he should have not been as scared to take the initiative sometimes. But at the same time, whenever Van Toerenhout and Nieuwenhuis went at it, Sveik was dropped from the wheel, ever so slightly. So to me, it felt like he was the third strongest on the day. That's where he finished. And that's fair play to him, second in the World Cup standings now.
I see what you mean. I don't know if it was, the fact that he was always somewhat the latest to join the party up front, if that had to do with, him not having the legs, or more a conscious decision of, trying to, I wouldn't say take it easy, but you try to pace yourself up a little bit and not use that much energy overall, try to be a bit more economical in a way, efficient. But I think on the last lap, personally, I would say that when he was there and he had the opportunity to overtake Van Torenhout, which he had because the pace was really not that high, I felt that he should have done that. He should have gone for that move, because when you're in the lead, especially someone like Sveik, he's not that easy to push around. And also, we have seen before how Sveik is able to make himself quite wide. So I think that he miscalculated that a little bit, in my opinion. I felt that he definitely should have tried to be there in the lead. But is it a huge mistake? No, not really, because you can definitely see the right as well in the move that he made there in being in the wheel of Van Torenhout, because he probably thought, I'm good here. If I'm here in second, I can definitely still play a major role for victory. And it just played out that Nieuwenhuis was there in third and knew that he had to move up as well. And when those things kind of happen, it's hard to predict what is really going to happen and the moves that will be made, and you only know afterwards what the right move really was, and it played out as it played out. So I think for Sveik, I would say a missed opportunity for a victory, because I think he definitely could have won this if it went his way. But that's how it goes, and you have to deal with that. And he won that race against Van de Putte, where we were thinking in was it Neil, where Van de Putte was victorious, almost, and there was Sveik. So sometimes it goes your way and sometimes it doesn't, and that's how it is with these kind of more tactical races, and that's cyclocross.
Maybe he could have been more aggressive in those final laps, but I would say he did try to move past, like that moment that he moved from third to second, pushing by Nieuwenhuis. He did also try to move to the front, but Van Torenhout, he's not fooled easily. He's experienced, he knows all the tips and tricks from the book. I mean, he and Elisabeth wrote a whole book themselves about how to defend positions and how to block riders, so definitely, if that ever gets published, I will be buying it, and it would be good for other teams to take a read into that. So it's hard to beat Van Torenhout in those situations when it really is this duel for positioning, and especially now that Van Torenhout has kind of grown more accustomed to racing without Iserbeet, you also see that he's racing less in this style where he's always the one pacing hard from 30 to 50 to go, knowing that if he doesn't break away, Iserbeet will be in the wheels to finish it off in the last lap and a half. So I think those are kind of my main observations about Van Torenhout, which explain why Sveik maybe struggled a bit against them. He was late to the party, and to me, like, the riding style of Sveik is always a little bit misleading. He just rides with this nonchalance, this ease, because he's so skilled on the bike. It always looks like he's never really in trouble, which means that it's easy to think he's taking it easy, but for me, like, a good Laurens Sveik, one that's 110%, not that he's not good now, but like the best Laurens Sveik would just be on that wheel all the time and then finish it off in the final 2 or 3 laps. But overall, he can look at a good month of November, and we can look at the entire top 10, because Van Torenhout, Nieuwenhuis and Sveik stood on the podium ahead of Ryan Kamp, Niels van der Putte in 5th, 6th place for Victor van der Putte, Toon van der Bos in 7th, Filippo Agostinaccio in 8th, Mees Hendricks in 9th, and Pim Ronhaar in 10th. Maybe we should start at the top and just work our way down. Issam, Ryan Kamp. What a ride, once again. He was up there in Tabor, and that was an impressive ride. Last week wasn't bad in Flamanville, and now he bounces back. We know that Kamp is at his best on these faster courses historically, and he does that on the 2 fast World Cups, but certainly didn't see this streak of performances coming from him after the way he started his season. And as always, you could see, we already just mentioned it, but Ryan Kamp is not a rider I would want to go into a corner with together.
I would maybe even go even further. Rijnkamp is not a rider you want to race all that often, to be honest. I think you're happy to have him behind you, not alongside you. But there are just certain riders that have that just are like, I'm not gonna give it an inch, and I'm gonna try to get my way and go alongside or whatever, and they find space at places where there's literally no place, and they just they just fudge themselves in, and they say thank you, and sometimes that works out, high risk moves, and sometimes they don't. But I think today I definitely have to give him credit for the way he was racing, because he was always trying to be up there at the front. Sure, it is a course that looks like suits him well, and sure, the field wasn't that large, and sure the level wasn't all that great, but nevertheless, to be up there is already something, and you have to take those opportunities when you have such a starting field. It's still up to you to make something out of it, and I think that he took that opportunity. He is on a roll for his own doing. I think that he is definitely overperforming compared to where I thought he was, where I kind of expected him. So, job well done, and he is moving up, and I don't think that there was more in it. So he definitely maximized his results. So fair play.
And he needs this, because I just checked it. Last year he got 4 televised top 10s, or 4 televised top 10s and 1 World Cup top 10, which was 10th in Hogerheide. He very much needs this. I don't really know what his situation is at the Rotos. I mean, he's still being supported here as an individual rider. That situation is unchanged, but that to me also makes it seem kind of like the easiest situation to be dropped by the Roodhoof brothers, because he's not really part of a team, and he's the only one responsible for the publicity. I mean, I guess we should start speculating at this point if the Roodhoof brothers are reforming a 4th team. I mean, Clauzel is still racing around in a black kit, and they said, oh, the kit just hasn't been delivered. I'm sorry. That was 2 months ago. There's something going on there. So maybe, with Colnago, they're bringing back some form of team with Kamp and with Clauzel, and maybe this is the way for Foucounet to get in somewhere, but maybe there's something being created there. But back to where we are, he needs these performances, and he needs to show his worth and show that talent, because he is a former U23 world champion. He needs to show that talent is still somewhere in him, and sure, he might never become the biggest winner, but he needs to show that he's well worthy of having this super special place within the Roodhoof structure. For the rest, Niels van der Putte, in the final lap I was about to call 911, about to call the police. What's going on? Is Niels van der Putte going to steal the win? No. And honestly, it's kind of fitting for his season, this race. It's not bad at all. It's roughly on par with last year. Last year also had many of these results, but most of the time the quarter would kind of fall his way in the last lap, and he would get into the race, take 2nd or 3rd, a win here or there. And this year it's just not been there. I think he's half a percentage point off of where he was last year, at least relative to the rest. And as a result, he's not really able to get these big podiums in the World Cup yet. But that can still come. Last year he was somewhat disappointed with his form at the championships, also because he raced 35 times last year. So maybe this year things are going in a different direction, and he might have his goals at the Belgian Championships, thinking, this year I really want to perform there. Or the World Championships, it's a course that he won at last year in the World Cup. So that much for Niels van der Putte. I'm not overly critical. It's also normal that at some point in your career you hit a flat point, and then maybe you change some things and then reach your absolute ceiling. We'll see what that brings. His fellow Van der Putte, but with spaces between the name, Victor van de Putte, also a very good race. 6th place for him. I think we discussed him a number of times already this season. He continues what is a very good season. In case you're just tuning in now, I can give a very brief recap. He credits his results to the new partnership that Deschamps has with the Lotto Road team. He has new performance environment, he has a nutritionist, and he has bigger road program, more volume building there. and he thinks that helped him perform this year. But then, Issam, Filippo Agostinaccio, to be clear, not Mattia, not the U23 world champion or European champion and the junior world champion of last year, but his older brother, who finished second last year at the European Championships U23 in Pontevedra, 8th place today. And I'm not wearing a hat, but if I had one, I would take it off. But what a performance by him. Like, really strong ride. We know that he's historically the best on fast, not that technical courses. He got one today, but still. Okay, he beats Ronhaar with a bit of luck, but to beat Hendricks, Meeuwse, Viseur, that's impressive.
I wouldn't have given much for an Italian in the top 10, even though the starting field wasn't all that crazy. But it looked like it was not going to happen. You know, maybe somewhere around the outside of the top. But he managed to be up there, and you know, the crash definitely didn't help. But he still managed to you know, give it his best, and he was thereabout. And I think. As I said, I think he is definitely one of the riders where you could see that the course, just the nature of it gives certain riders just a better opportunity to move up the ranks and hold position and stay in position. And I think that he was definitely one of those riders that I wouldn't say felt comfortable, but got something to work with in terms of the course, and was able to negotiate the circumstances rather okay and maximize his day, in my opinion. I think that he couldn't really have performed better than that he did, and I think that it is good to see that in a home soil Italian race that we were actually able to witness an Italian in the top 10, because as I said before, I wouldn't have given much for that, and I think that it was definitely a very good job. So that was impressive to see as well, that he was able to be up there and race his way there in the top 10. A very solid result.
Then I have a few more comments before we move to the women's side. And first of all, Pim Ronhaar, he's had back issues, and we speculated that from Flamanville, and he admitted to that in an interview this week. 10th place, he was really good, but then punctured in the last lap. I think he might have hit one of the fences at the side of the course, taking some risk to recover from a late bike change. Very risky to take the bike change so late going into the final lap, but yeah, I don't want to be too critical of that bike change and necessarily blame that puncture on it, but he made a very strong impression today. I think at least it will be maybe difficult for him to remain consistent. Those back issues, yeah, if they come and go, then you might see races like today where he's really up there and showing what we know is in him. Like, he is a rider that can win these races, and we've seen it this season so early on as well. And his start wasn't that good today, but he eased into the race. That mistake that we saw so early in this season. Think about Overijse, think about here, the go early on. We got to be there. We got to win the race in the first 15 minutes. None of that today. He eased into the race, made a move at the right time. And honestly, I thought he could have finished on the podium or even won this thing altogether with the way he was racing today. So, very unfortunate, but if his back does keep up, we can clearly see the form is there, and that's for him a very encouraging sign. Maybe not so encouraging the race for Joran Viseur. Again, not a good result, 11th. It's not as bad as in recent weeks, but the field also isn't that deep. Again, a very weird crash where it looks like he just loses focus and goes... It was nasty. He went right into one of these wooden bollards, and that was not nice to see. So hopefully for Viseur he can turn things around, and I think that is kind of it what we have on the men's side. So we can move to the women's side, which was also not a very deep field, and unfortunately also not a very tense battle for the win. Brand had a good start. She and Aniek van Alphen were up there in the first lap. Sarah Casasola, Shirin van Anrooij. But already in the second lap, Brand powered through one of the sand sections after Van Alphen made a tiny mistake. Brand flew away, took victory in an emotional win for her. She has some things going on at home. She didn't disclose what, so we're also not going to speculate about that. But it was a nice win for her. She has only lost 2 races this season. Her worst result is a second place. I mean, just take a bow to that. There was a bigger battle for second place. Shirin van Anrooij really came into this race, had a good middle part, But ultimately, in the final part of the race, Van Alphen managed to recover a bit. She didn't make the strongest impression, was under pressure by Van Anrooij, but managed to turn that around, claimed second, retains the lead in the overall World Cup. Van Anrooij taking her first podium in over 2 years, and that for her was also a great result. But Brand, Issam, it remains very hard to beat her. I perhaps expected the most from Casasola, but today was not a good result for her. And then that Van Alphen and Van Anrooij can't really challenge her. That much was unfortunately expected. We spoke along about the waiting game in the preview and whatnot, so I guess we're still waiting one more week, huh?
I guess we are. I mean, it's you kind of know when Brandt is going to be able to use, her abilities to her advantage, the power. But if she also finds a course where it's not all that tricky, she's able to get through it without that many mistakes, you just know it's going to be a very difficult day. And that is what that we saw. It was just the difference was there. She was able to open the gap, and then she says goodbye, and you see her at the finish line when she already won. And that is just kind of what we what you can expect. I think that there's not sure it wasn't the most exciting race to watch, especially for victory, but that is sometimes how it goes, and that is we have gotten used to that, I guess, a little bit. But I think for me, for sure, Van Alphen, good race, but I was very happy to see that Van Anrooij was able to get on the podium. I think that if you look at the progress that she's making, it is a steady progress as well, which is normally the progress which you kind of want to see, because, there will be times that you see a very high peak, but that doesn't really give you any confirmations, because it could very much be that the very next race is going to be a disaster. So I think that she's on a good path, and I have to say, sure, the field today wasn't great. Definitely on the women's side, even more. And we are still in that waiting game, which hopefully soon will be over. But nevertheless, I think then still she, being able to finish on the podium is still an incredible result. So very good. Doesn't mean that we now have to expect podiums in the next coming weekends, but I think that it is a very good sign, and that if you're just able to continue that and not get too carried away, and also expect that a race or two will not go your way, and that is kind of how it will go in terms of where she's at the moment, and that is, as I said before, that's a progress that I'm really interested in to see where that will end up at the end of the season. So yeah, I think that for me, to be honest, on the women's side was somewhat the story of the day, but overall, yeah, we had a very good podium. Van Alphen, very strong ride, and Brandt was just simply the best.
Simply the best. That could be a fitting sound tune for the season of Brandt, because it's really been incredible, like 36 years, and then to put out this, like, it's just so impressive, and we should never take it for granted, and it's good to sometimes just remember just how special those results are that she gets, and the consistency. Like, we're nearing 2 years of podium streak. 2 years. Bad starts, mechanicals, recover from it, still finish on the podium. Tremendous. Really tremendous. And I said it, I think at this point, for me, it's kind of hard to bet against Brandt for the world title, and it's far away, but we speculated, and that was more just in the sense of, she's 35, she was very annoyed to miss that world title in Nivelles, because she knows there's only a limited number of opportunities when you're at this age, but certainly if everything goes normally, she will have another great opportunity this year, and we should be cautious because there are so many more people that are still to start their cross season, but it's been very impressive. About the other riders, again, I will echo what I said during the men's race. Training interpretation at this point, like Brandt and Van Anrooij, they did their training camp here. I think that Brandt will be heading to Namur. I'm not 100% sure what Van Anrooij is doing. She might join a little trek in Spain and then only return for Antwerp, but that is an unconfirmed rumor I heard. Casasola, she skipped last week to train for this week, but again, what does that mean? Does that mean that from Tabor she went to Italy or Spain or wherever and did a long block of training and is fatigued now? Or did she rest for this weekend? Like, there's so many things that we can't see, and at this point it's so complicated with the training and who is where that sure, this is not a great result for Casasola on this kind of fast and forward leaning course. She should have been able to do well, but that wasn't the case. So I wouldn't worry too much. There's plenty of time to come. Namur, I'm curious to see how she does on the climbing courses. She has a bit of a mixed record there. But if she can do well, then we can turn the page again. There will be more races at Christmas. Definitely not Antwerp and Kokside or Hofstade, but a race like Zolder should be semi-fine for her. Gavre should be good for her. Dendermonde, like there will be opportunities for her. So for now, I'm not too worried about that result. And then Van Alphen Issam, she was not planning to come here. She changed her plans because she's leading the World Cup. Obviously, that makes sense. Like, how many opportunities will she get to race in the World Cup leaders jersey? Probably not that many. It's very tough. It's very good and very special that she's leading now. But I do wonder, like, in the long run, what the toll of that will be. We just discussed, like, Casasola, Brand, detailed their training plans. And then Van Alphen is making a last-minute change. It can backfire, but if it backfires on the other end, like, how bad is it really? Like, she can cut back some Christmas races and recuperate that way. It would definitely be worth it, in my opinion. I'm just kind of trying to stipulate that there are some risks to it.
It will depend on the consequences. I think that if the consequences are going to be major, then I feel that we could maybe, then the question definitely will be there, and we will ask, was it worth it? And maybe the team will ask that as well. But I think plans, you should not really be too fixated on it. I think that if there is some room to change it up a little bit, why not? And definitely with the circumstances right now, leader's jersey, how can you not say no, I guess, and make it a nice couple of days in Italy and enjoy the island. So, it could be worse, I guess. So I think that is definitely not the worst decision being taken in history. And we will see. But I think, again, I want to say that her race was also strong. It's just she's definitely now just in a position that there's just someone just better, and then you get these type of races. And I think that if you're still able then to finish in second, means you maximize the day and got the points. So in terms of classification, she did a good job. And we have to see how that will impact, in the Christmas period. I hope not too much, to be honest, because that would be somewhat of a shame if you try to make the best out of your week and ride in the leader's jersey, and then in the Christmas period the form is nowhere. But it is something to take into consideration. I don't think it will hurt her too much, but you never really know.
It would definitely have been worth it. Her season is already a success. First World Cup win, 2 races at least in the leader's jersey. Like, all in all, it's well worth the while to go there. So I don't want to be critical of that. It's just something to keep in mind with how meticulously planned these training programs are, and then to have this. But yeah, before I read the entire top 10, just a comment on Shirin van Anrooij. I had her on 9 in Noah's 9, and she will definitely be moving up, but that will be for the midweek episode. One thing I did think about after recording that is that in the beginning of the season, we always talk about, this rider needs to grow, they need a number of races to get into a rhythm, they need some race hardness, they need to adapt to that. And it's very easy to forget that that's also the case for these riders. I think I did mention it for Van Anrooij, but that was more in the context of just her being out of the cyclocross sport for nearly 2 years. I mean, that season she had 2 seasons ago was barely a real season. So I think also just in the context of a rider starting his or her season right now, we should mention that there is still rustiness for them coming in. And just because they come in now doesn't mean that they don't experience what the other riders experience early in the season. And that's definitely something I feel I have neglected too much with these riders. And still, yeah, you say something, oh, they need 1 or 2 races, but in the beginning of the season, we give people a whole lot more of time. Like I say, yeah, they need 5 races, and this rider really needs like to adapt to the race rhythm and the race hardness to really maximize their performance. So that's one thing I still wanted to add in context here. Then we can run down the entire top 10. Brand, Van Alphen, Van Anrooij, Bentveld, Dutch top 4, Casasola in 5th, ahead of Bakker and Betsema. 2 Italians, Rebecca Gariboldi and Lucia Bramati in 8th and 9th. Both for them their best World Cup finish, with 10th place going to Annemarie Worst. Sandra Carmen Alvarado was a DNF after the first lap. She is sick. Very unfortunate for her. She was just getting back into action from a knee injury. So hopefully she recovers soon and can really get the going. Think for the rest, yeah, the start field wasn't that deep, but it was still quite cool to see Gariboldi and Bramati in the top 10. Gariboldi last year also finished in the top 10. I believe it was in Mol. I've seen her in the top 10 at some Christmas race last year. And Bramati, we discussed her, has to be in Tabor, where she was way up there as well on 12th, and now getting a top 10. That was quite cool to see.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that is that's sort of the advantage that you get, I guess, with a starting field that isn't up there to what it could be. But it's okay, you know. As I said, I see that more as an advantage, I guess. The racing sure could be hurt because of that, but it is what it is, and you have to deal with it. And I think that both Gariboldi and Bramati have been on good form, good results, and you can definitely see it somewhat as a reward to get there in the top 10 and have a top 10 in the World Cup, because normally that would, in normal circumstances, that would not happen this season. But it happens. So
no. Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of how it goes. These opportunities, you need to take them, and they did. And in other years, we saw other riders take them, and it was a stepping stone for them.
Yeah, exactly. So these are opportunities that you, when you get them, when they are presented, you have to take them, and they can sometimes change a little bit the I guess the mentality, the whole idea of how to approach a race, and sometimes it is that first result of many, and I don't think that is particularly now here the case, but you know, it is an experience that you sometimes need, and that you can carry with you throughout the season and in the coming seasons as well. So, you know, good for them that they were able to pull that off, and I think it was also nice to see that we, again, also on the women's side, had not 1 but 3 Italians in the top 10. So I think that they were up there. They did what they had to do for, you know, in their home race, and I think you know, that's definitely that. As I said, that was a good side. That was good to see, and you know, congrats for them, because it's an effort.
But overall, a really sad state of affairs for the World Cup race.
I'm trying to be positive.
Starters. Yeah. 29 starters, and 3 of them are not from the host country, the Netherlands or Belgium. Sydney McGill, Anna McGaley, and Adele Hurteloop. Those were the 3 non-Dutch, Belgian, Italian riders starting here on the women elite side. On the men elite side, it was not that much better. There were more Americans that made the trip, a couple of them, only because they knew they could score some good UCI points here. So it's definitely something the World Cup should look into, and I said it in the comment in one of the reactions that we got on the podcast of the midweek, and I said it, the World Cup in the current way, it's not worthy of being 12 rounds. The only change to the old format is that we have more races in Belgium in a shorter time span. The riders don't really benefit from it. The other organizers don't benefit from it. The riders don't benefit from it. So something should change. Look into double weekends, look into midweeks, look into helping, like, they invented a protected status. Just put a protected status on this weekend and don't organize any race for the World Cup. And don't allow any races in Belgium. And allow people to go training. Go to more international places. Protect these organizers. But try and make a change, because this is not the first time. It's not even the second or third time that this date is bad. So clearly something should be done. Because, again, I don't blame the riders for not going here. I will read you some... or if you want to say something still.
No, I just wanted to say, I just wanted to say, like, who's going to pay then the fees there in that weekend? You know, that's, I think that this
nobody.
That's
You
probably
just
the
move
issue.
to a double weekend. You just
Yeah, I know what you mean, but I think financially for sure it is a the Christmas period is probably quite busy, and sure, a double weekend is something that you could try to do, but I don't know. I definitely see that your point in terms of that this should normally just be a week where they just make sure that no races are organized at all. Just keep that protected status. Don't organize a World Cup, and everything is good. But I think that there is just they are trying to balance a little bit the money that they get out of the organizers, the
they're balancing
flexibility
their
that
own
they want to
books.
have, huh?
They're balancing their own books.
Yeah, they're balancing their own books, yeah, and they don't really think about the sport, and I think that is visible. So yeah, I don't want to go in on that too long, but I feel that it's just if they would really think about the sport, and I guess the athletes and more cyclocross riders and cyclocross as a world has more to say into this instead of some bobos that try to decide where the sport is heading, then I think you would have more reasonable decisions being taken. But at this point, it's more about the money, and it's more about having a race every Sunday, and TV deals, and saying that it's all good when it's behind the paid wall, and it's nonsense, I guess, and it's stupid. But I guess this is where we are, so it is what it is. I will not interrupt you anymore. I just let you do your thing.
No. And with the Bobos, we're back at where we started. This is the sport headed towards the UCI Peace Prize and a 2.5-hour show for Lapparchant and Flanders Classics to parade themselves. But no, look, when I say double weekend, what I mean is this, and then I'll just give the other results. Going to Tabor is a big financial effort for anyone, be it the Dutch Federation and Belgian Federation going there with all their riders, be it the French Federation, be it even like the federations from elsewhere. Kind of Tabor is the perfect weekend. It's centrally located in Europe. All the Eastern countries come. The Western countries with the money bring their cyclocross program there as well. Like, these organizers are eager to make a difference. They broadcasted the mixed relay at the World Championships. They broadcasted the junior categories this year. And try and do something. Like, come up with a double weekend. Maybe you race Saturday night and Sunday. Maybe you only do the youth races one day and you have the elite races both days. But that will make it more worth the while for everybody who goes there. So that would kind of be my plea to look into double weekends. Because if we can have a double weekend Antwerp-Kokzijde, why can't we have a double weekend Tabor-Tabor? Or why can't we try and find another organizer in that region? Okay, that said, here are the results, because there was also racing elsewhere in Europe. Spain, Xativa hosted the 7th round of the Copa de España. This is kind of close to the area where a lot of riders are on training camp. That was visible in the men junior category, where Benjamin Noval Suarez beat Filippo Grigolini and Tommaso Ciglialoni. So that was kind of the only reason I mentioned that, because you could definitely see some juniors that were on training camp there heading over to do the race on the Saturday. Not everybody made the trip up on Sunday. In the elite races, Felipe Orts won ahead of Jorben Laurijs and Kevin Suarez Fernandez. Laurijs, another rider who is there on training camp, he's joining Tartaletto on the road. Larissa Hartog won the women elite race ahead of Sofia Rodriguez Rever and Lucia Gonzalez Blanco. The 8th round of the Copa de España took place today in Corsentina, with Felipe Orts winning ahead of Jorben Laurijs and Mario San Milan. Larissa Hartog beat Sara Cueto Vega and Sofia Rodriguez Rever to the win in the women's elite category. The 5th round of the Swiss Cyclocross Cup took place in Hitnau. Lander Looks beating Theo Thomas and Rémi Lelandais. In the women elite category, it was Rebecca Esterman beating Perrine Clausel and Jana Klaus. Bradford hosted the 5th and final round of the British National Series. The win went to Thomas Mean ahead of Toby Barnes and Daniel Barnes. Grace Inglis beat Freya Whiteside on the women's elite category, with Elena Day completing the podium. There was racing in Poland, in Zielona, with Marek Konda beating Silas Kuszla and Krzysztof Domin. Judith Karol beating Sofia Ungerova and Susanna Kristalla for the win in the women elite category. And then finally there was racing in Utsunomiya in Japan. Hirji Oda beating Tatsumi Sumiani, Koshi Narita for the win. On the women's elite side, Yui Ishida took the win ahead of Ayaka Hiyoshi and Nanami Ikawasa. That was definitely not pronounced correctly. But on the second day of racing, it was again Hyuji Oda taking the win ahead of Toki Sawada and Isai Matsumoto. Akaya Hiyosha took the win ahead of Yui Ishida and Akari Kobayashi in the women's race. That last one was correct because, of course, I know Kamui Kobayashi from Formula 1. So, that said, those are the results. We're kind of nearing the end of the international cyclocross season. Issam last week already, a couple of series wrapped up. Next week, most of the other seasons also kind of wrap up, and then it's really just the season continuing on through Belgium. Lots of riders heading over there for the Christmas period, and then either the season ends with Zonhoven / National Championships the week after, or you extend your season to the World Championships. It's getting ever closer, and I am excited for now for that busy schedule. I think it's always fun and always tiring, but we will be there, and hopefully you as well, Issam. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, let's hope we will reach that in good health, and I don't know how I can share your excitement knowing what you have to go through during that period, but I definitely am somewhat excited for the racing that will be happening, and it will be great, and I have always with these type of races, when you enter them, the Christmas period somewhat, you are there and the first couple of races fly by, and before you know it's already the end of it, and you're like, whoa, there's quite a few races that we had to get through, but then it's already over. So it's crazy. We were talking about not talking too much about the World Championship, and you just hear that coming more and more, and then there will be riders that have to make decisions if they will ride the World Championships or not. So yeah, I think we're definitely entering a very interesting period, and we will be there to cover that. So I'm excited for sure.
It will be fun, and yeah, I will be attending a number of these races, but at the end of the day, it also, being at a race, it just gives you a certain degree of energy, walking around, making these videos, and then editing the videos afterwards. It's fun, and yeah, it will take a toll, but I would do nothing. Well, yeah.
You're gonna be cooked.
There's no place I'd rather be, so I'm like, it wouldn't be the same if Christmas period, not being in some muddy, cold field, not having to deal with some incidents on and around the track, not having bickering with a parking marshal. Like, it wouldn't be the same. It wouldn't be real Christmas period without that. So that said, thanks everyone for listening. We will be back this week with a midweek episode. We'll be previewing the American Championships in Fayetteville, and we will be presenting our power rankings. Thanks everyone for listening. See you guys then. Goodbye.